Joining me now in studio is one of our favorites, Charles Taerk, who's the CEO of Faircourt Asset Management and UIT Funds. Charles, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So right away, let's talk about the performance in 2018, which for some, like myself, was pretty rocky and not very fun. But
right.
Let's talk about Faircourt and how you did.
So the fund that we manage in the cannabis sector is called the Ninepoint Alternative Health Fund, and we're the portfolio advisors. This is Canada's first actively managed mutual fund. It's coming up on our second anniversary, so we're 2 years into this. And 2019 was groundbreaking for many factors. Obviously, legalization and many countries legalizing for medical purposes. Performance was rocky. We're very proud of our performance. For 2018, our annual number was about 17.5%. And what's interesting about that is when you compare our performance to the indexes or the passive strategy, so HMMJ was down close to 20% for the year. So we're up 17.5, HMMJ is down 20. So active management to us is really important. Being able to go to cash, being able to move positions, being able to trade, and being able to take profit. I think that was one of the big lessons of 2018. And just being able to be agile. I think that's really what we're able to do. I was saying just before we came on the air, there were 3 times during 2018 when the cannabis sector was up more than 25%, and there were also 3 periods when the cannabis sector was down more than 25%. So that's a lot of volatility for investors. You really have to put on your seatbelt and feel comfortable with that level of risk. And I think that's what we provide as fund managers. We're lowering the volatility for investors as they make an investment in the cannabis sector.
Yeah, I mean, last year I think a lot of people might have been like this too, but I was just waiting for things to, okay, it's going to pick up now, okay, and it just kept, there's these periods of just sort of like way more downside than I think anyone could have expected. So.
And then they abruptly changed direction.
Yeah.
And we often last year were talking to people about, well, when was the best time for them to invest? And we would say, look, as the market is weakening, that's the time when you should be investing. Not because it's selfish and you should get into our fund or an ETF, but what we've seen a number of times now, and even in December, that's the time when a strategic investor is going to make their major inroads. So back in August, the market was weak. That's when Constellation invested in Canopy. In December, you got the Aphria deal with Kronos, and it's when Tilray announced their big deals with Novartis and AB InBev. Those are strategic investment periods. So you don't want to wait too long and get too cute to call the bottom. You want to get in when you believe that there's relative value.
Yeah, and so getting in December would have been good because January has been a great month so far.
Yeah, it's been, the broader equity markets across North America have responded positively getting into the new year, and I think the psychology at the end of the year was pretty rough. So January's been a different month.
And you look at the broader markets as well.
Yeah, Faircourt has many different mandates. We've got everything from a gold equities fund to North American equities, broadly diversified, and then this is a specialty product for us.
Okay, and in terms of announcements or pressers and things of that nature, what has sort of got your attention the most? What are you looking at?
Well, I just mentioned the strategic investments at the end of December. That was very noteworthy, and I think then shortly after that was hostile takeover being announced. This is unique because it's a U.S. company listed on CSE, but a U.S. company, Green Growth Brands, making a hostile takeover for Aphria. And I think we all know the story there with Aphria was doing quite well, but got in the crosshairs of a short seller report at the beginning of December. And it really hasn't recovered to its full strength. There's still some questions about the transactions that they've done internationally. And so it's an opportune time for someone to step in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, as we were saying too, some of the revenue numbers that are going to be popping up are just going to grow larger and larger and larger. So that's a transition maybe, as well as looking at things like EBITDA, and as opposed to just you know, funded capacity or other.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I think we saw this in November and December with the most recent quarters that came out. The companies in this sector are going to increasingly be analyzed by their bottom line results, by earnings, cash flow. And we saw in November, it was a great example because 5 or 6 companies came out in 1 week, all with disappointing quarterlies. And then CanTrust came out on the Thursday of that week, I believe, and they were the only ones that had a positive quarter. These were all quarters that ended prior to legalization, so it was mostly all medical. But the point was that investors are getting impatient with bottom line results. And actually we see some further weakness that people can anticipate for the first 3 to 6 months of this year, because we're playing, you know, delay with the quarters. But given that in Canada at least, you've got a delay in the number of stores that are being rolled out by the provinces, you've got production issues with ramp up that are slower than anticipated. So the earnings, both revenue, bottom line earnings, are not going to be as robust as previously planned. So you've got to make some adjustments to your portfolio and look for opportunities where you really believe in the company, you do your due diligence, you look at management, you see what the long term is, and you know, be prepared to be patient.
Yeah. Okay, great. Charles, if somebody wants to get involved in your fund, what do they do?
So this is a mutual fund. It's called the Ninepoint Alternative Health Fund. The fund code is, well, depending on whether you want A class or F class, the A class is NPP 5420. Okay. And then you can see the other codes from there. But that's what we're up to.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for coming in again, Charles. I hope you come back soon. It's been way too long since the last time you were in here.
Oh, my pleasure. I'd love to be on soon too.
Great.